When we first encountered the humans, it wasn't their technology that caught our attention. Certainly, they had mastered faster-than-light travel, harnessed energy sources beyond our comprehension, and constructed cities that rivaled the beauty of the crystalline towers of Quarva 7. But these were feats we had seen before, accomplished by countless other species in the galactic community. What truly made us pause, what sent waves of confusion and disbelief rippling through the Jalar Consortium, was their diet. The diplomatic summit on Elandar Station was supposed to be a routine affair, a meeting to welcome Earth's representatives to the galactic fold. The humans were a new addition, one of the youngest species to achieve spacefaring status. They were expected to be deferential, eager to prove themselves worthy of inclusion among the more established civilizations. What none of us expected was the brazenness of their culinary display. The summit was held in the Grand Hall, a sprawling chamber with walls adorned by murals depicting the histories of the consortium's founding members. Delegates from dozens of species had gathered, each bringing cultural artifacts, music, and food to showcase their unique identities. The humans arrived with smiles and a small fleet of service drones carrying trays of what they called Earth cuisine. At first, the other delegates showed polite interest. The food smelled different, spicy and rich in ways that defied galactic norms. It wasn't until High Chancellor Varel approached the humans' display that the situation began to spiral. The Chancellor, a towering Jalarian with translucent, gelatinous skin that pulsed with soft bioluminescent hues, was drawn to a large dish at the center of the table. It was labeled Tiger Masala in bold, unfamiliar script. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she examined the strange orange sauce and the chunks of meat within it. "What creature did this come from?" she asked, her voice echoing across the hall. Her tentacles twitched, a Shalarian sign of barely contained anxiety. The human ambassador, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a friendly smile, answered without hesitation. "A tiger," he said, as though the answer was perfectly ordinary. For a moment, the hall was silent. Then, a murmur spread through the crowd, growing louder with every passing second. Delegates turned to each other, whispering in disbelief. Some recoiled from the humans' table entirely, their feathers, scales, or fur bristling with indignation. Others leaned in closer, their curiosity overpowering their horror. "A tiger?" someone repeated, their voice trembling. "Yes," the human replied, his smile unwavering. "A large predator from our homeworld. This particular dish is a delicacy, slow-cooked with spices to enhance the flavor." The murmurs erupted into outright chaos. For many species, apex predators were sacred, revered as untouchable forces of nature. They were symbols of balance, creatures that sat at the top of their ecosystems. Killing such beings was unthinkable, eating them even more so. And yet here were the humans, not just admitting to such acts, but presenting them as if they were commonplace. "How could you?" demanded a Qatar representative, her feline features twisted in outrage. "Tigers are apex predators. They command respect, not slaughter." The human ambassador blinked, clearly confused by the reaction. "On Earth, we don't think of it that way. Tigers are dangerous, sure, but they're also part of our ecosystem. We've hunted them for centuries. These days, most of the tiger meat we use comes from sustainable farming operations." "Farming apex predators?" another delegate hissed, their voice dripping with disbelief. I watched it all unfold from the edge of the room, struggling to process what I was hearing. As a junior xenobiologist, my assignment was to observe and document human behavior during the summit. But nothing in my training had prepared me for this. Farming apex predators? It defied every natural law I understood. Predators ate prey, not each other. Apex predators were at the top of the food chain, untouchable by anything except time and nature itself. Yet here stood the humans, casually breaking those rules, their only defense being that it was normal for them. As the commotion in the hall grew, I noticed something strange about the humans. They didn't seem defensive or ashamed. Instead, they looked amused, as though the uproar were some sort of cultural misunderstanding they found endearing. It was at that moment I realized we were dealing with a species unlike any other. They weren't bound by the same instincts, the same unspoken laws that governed life across the galaxy. Their relationship with the natural world was fundamentally different, and for the first time, I began to feel a deep, unsettling curiosity about what other rules they might be willing to break. The humans left the summit in a flurry of mixed reactions. Some delegates refused to speak to them, citing their disregard for the sanctity of apex predators as barbaric. Others seemed intrigued, even if begrudgingly, by the audacity of their actions. For my part, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I spent the evening poring over what little data we had on Earth. The archives were sparse, the planet only recently added to our database. Most of the information focused on their technological achievements. Primitive in many ways, yet astonishingly rapid in their progression. But when I dug into their biology and culture, I found references that left me unsettled. Humans were omnivores, which wasn't unusual. Many species consumed both plants and animals. But the sheer breadth of their diet was staggering. Creatures from every tier of their ecosystem seemed to be fair game. Small prey animals like rabbits and deer, herd beasts like cattle and bison, and even creatures that most species would consider untouchable. Sharks, bears, and yes, tigers. The most perplexing part was their apparent lack of fear. In the natural order, creatures evolved an inherent respect, if not outright fear, for predators. Prey species fled, and even other predators knew better than to challenge the rulers of their respective domains. Yet humans didn't just challenge these creatures, they actively sought them out. The following day, I attended a debriefing session with the Galar Consortium's Cultural Analysis Division. The mood in the room was tense. High Chancellor Varel herself presided over the meeting, her bioluminescent skin flickering in a pattern that I recognized as agitation. "Explain to me," she demanded, her voice cold, "why this species considers apex predators part of their food supply. What evolutionary mechanism could possibly lead to such behavior?" I hesitated before speaking. It's not just an evolutionary mechanism, High Chancellor. It appears to be cultural as well. Humans have a long history of hunting, one deeply tied to their development as a species. They've always been tool users, and those tools allowed them to hunt creatures far stronger and faster than themselves. "And the farming," another delegate interjected, their antennae quivering in disbelief. "They claim to farm apex predators. How is that even possible?" "Humans excel at manipulating their environment," I replied. "They've domesticated prey animals for millennia, but as their technology advanced, they began applying similar methods to predators. It's less about necessity and more about mastery. They see the act of taming and consuming such creatures as a demonstration of their control over nature." The room was silent for a moment as the implications settled over us. "What is It's madness," someone muttered. "Perhaps," I admitted, "but it's effective. Humans have reshaped their world to suit their needs, and this behavior is an extension of that. Their willingness to hunt and consume apex predators isn't an act of defiance against nature. It's a declaration that they are no longer bound by it. The Chancellor's glow dimmed, a sign of deep contemplation. And what does that mean for us? It was a question I couldn't answer. The humans were unlike any species we had encountered, and their disregard for the natural order challenged everything we thought we understood about the balance of life. But I couldn't help feeling a growing sense of fascination alongside my unease. The more I learned about them, the more I wanted to know. Who were these beings who broke the rules with such ease, who consumed what others revered, who seemed to exist outside the very fabric of the food chain itself? In the days that followed, I began to observe the humans more closely. I watched their interactions with other delegates, noting how they responded to the outrage and curiosity their dietary habits had sparked. They were remarkably unflappable, often brushing off accusations with humor or a calm explanation. "It's just how we are," one of them said to me when I asked about the reaction at the summit. "We don't see it as strange. If it's edible and safe, we eat it. That's all there is to it." But it wasn't that simple. The more I listened, the more I realized that their approach to food was emblematic of their entire species. Humans weren't content to exist within the boundaries nature had set for them. They pushed, explored, and tested limits, always seeking to expand their reach. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. What other limits might they shatter in their relentless drive to conquer the unknown? And what would that mean for the rest of us? To understand humans, I had to go beyond surface impressions. Their casual attitude toward eating apex predators wasn't just a quirk. It was a window into their evolution and psyche. What I found left me both awed and deeply unsettled. Humans, by their own admission, are not apex predators in the traditional sense. Physically, they are unremarkable. They lack natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no crushing jaws. Their senses, while sharp enough to survive, are inferior to many animals they share their world with. Even their endurance, though impressive by some standards, pales compared to certain migratory species on Earth. By all accounts, they should be prey, but they are not. Human dominance on Earth wasn't a result of superior physical attributes. It was their intellect, creativity, and adaptability that propelled them to the top. They developed tools, first as extensions of their own bodies. Sharp stones to cut, pointed sticks to pierce. Over millennia, those tools evolved into weapons that rendered even the mightiest predators helpless. A human armed with a spear and bow could kill from a distance, bypassing the teeth and claws of their adversaries entirely. Yet, their ascendancy didn't stop at tools. Humans mastered fire, giving them the ability to not only defend themselves, but also to transform their environment. They burned forests to drive out game, cooked food to make it more digestible, and created warmth that allowed them to thrive in conditions that would kill other species. Even more astonishing was their ability to cooperate. Humans weren't solitary hunters. They worked in groups, combining their efforts with such precision that no single predator could stand against them. A pack of wolves might work together to bring down prey, but humans coordinated with a complexity that bordered on the unnatural. But what truly set them apart was their curiosity and determination. Most predators are specialists, honed to hunt specific prey within a narrow range of conditions. Humans were the opposite. They were generalists, capable of adapting to nearly any environment. Where other predators avoided unfamiliar territory, humans explored it. Where others respected the natural order, humans questioned it. Their relationship with apex predators epitomized this defiance. Tigers, bears, and sharks weren't just rivals to be avoided or threats to be feared. They were challenges to be overcome. To humans, hunting such creatures was a way of proving their dominance, a tangible demonstration of their mastery over the natural world. As I delved into their history, I discovered countless tales that illustrated this philosophy. Stories of ancient tribes hunting mammoths, of seafarers braving oceans to catch leviathans, of pioneers carving out settlements in lands teeming with deadly predators. Each tale was a testament to their audacity, their willingness to confront danger head-on. And it wasn't just survival. Humans found meaning in these acts. They told stories, created rituals, and passed down traditions that celebrated their victories over nature. To them, hunting an apex predator wasn't just about food, it was about identity. It reinforced their belief that they were not bound by the same rules as other creatures. Modern humans carried this legacy into their present. Farming apex predators, as I learned, was less a necessity and more a statement. They didn't need to eat tigers or alligators or sharks. They chose to. By farming these creatures, they turned the ultimate symbols of untouchable power into commodities, further cementing their place at the top of the food chain. This wasn't without consequence. Humans were aware of the ecological impact of their actions and had taken measures to mitigate it. They developed sustainable practices, bred endangered species in captivity, and even reintroduced predators into the wild. But these efforts didn't stem from reverence for the creatures themselves. They were pragmatic decisions, designed to ensure that humanity could continue to dominate without depleting their resources. The more I learned, the more I realized that humans didn't see themselves as part of the natural order. They saw themselves as its architects. Where other species accepted their place in the ecosystem, humans reshaped it to suit their needs. Their relationship with nature wasn't one of harmony, it was one of control. It was both exhilarating and terrifying to comprehend. Humans weren't apex predators. They were something far more dangerous. They were engineers of ecosystems, manipulators of life itself. And as I pieced together the story of their rise, I couldn't help but wonder, what happens when a species that refuses to be bound by nature begins to look outward, to the stars, to us? I had spent weeks immersed in human studies, poring over their history, culture, and biology, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of a human feast. When the invitation came, I accepted with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. It was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I needed to see firsthand how humans celebrated their infamous relationship with food. The location was a modest gathering place on a human colony world, what they called a backyard. It was a large open space with vibrant greenery, a bright sky, and an atmosphere buzzing with life. The humans had set up tables laden with food, the aromas filling the air with a richness that was almost overwhelming. The feast began with a casualness that belied the magnitude of the event. Humans were laughing, talking, and moving between tables, offering dishes to one another with a kind of infectious enthusiasm. Plates were piled high with an astonishing array of foods, each accompanied by an explanation of its origin and preparation. "This is alligator tail," one human said, gesturing to a skewer of meat that had been grilled to a golden brown perfection. "Caught in the swamps of old Earth, but now we farmed them on aquatic ranches." Another approached with a platter of what they called lion ribs, slow-cooked and coated in a sticky, fragrant glaze. "It's a little gamey," they said, "but the flavor is worth it." I tried to conceal my shock as I took in the offerings. Each dish represented a creature that would be considered untouchable in most ecosystems, apex predators that ruled their respective domains. Here, they were not only conquered, but prepared and served with an artistry that bordered on reverence. One dish in particular caught my attention: a fillet of something called blackened shark steak. The human offering it explained, "Sharks are one of Earth's oldest predators. We've been fishing them for centuries. Now we raise them sustainably in open ocean enclosures." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here were humans, farming and consuming creatures that once inspired fear and respect, treating them as nothing more than ingredients for their next meal. Yet their attitude wasn't one of cruelty. It was almost celebratory, as though they saw these acts as an extension of their identity, a testament to their ability to overcome even the most daunting challenges. "You've got to try this," a human said, handing me a plate with a small portion of grilled meat. "It's seared tuna, fastest fish in the ocean, or at least it used to be, before we figured out how to catch them reliably." I hesitated before taking a small bite. The flavor was complex and surprisingly pleasant, with a richness that lingered on the palate. I couldn't deny the skill involved in preparing it, nor the sense of pride the humans took in sharing it. As the feast continued, I began to understand what food meant to them. It wasn't just sustenance, it was a story, a shared experience that connected them to their past and their environment. By eating these creatures, they were not only feeding themselves, but reaffirming their place at the top of every food chain they encountered. It was both fascinating and disconcerting to witness. The humans spoke of their dishes with a mix of nostalgia and triumph, recounting the history of each creature and the methods used to capture or raise it. They didn't shy away from the challenges involved, whether it was navigating dangerous waters to fish for sharks or developing the technology to farm predators that would otherwise have hunted them. What struck me most was their joy. The humans were genuinely happy, not just to eat, but to share their food with others. They offered explanations, shared recipes, and encouraged everyone present, human and alien alike, to try something new. There was a sense of community that transcended species, a willingness to include others in their strange and audacious tradition. For the first time, I began to see the appeal of their way of life. The humans weren't just consuming, they were celebrating, asserting their place in the universe with every bite. It was a form of defiance, a declaration that nothing was beyond their reach, not the apex predators of their homeworld, not the ecosystems of their colonies, and perhaps not even the stars themselves. As the evening wore on, I found myself wondering what it would mean for the galaxy if humanity's appetite extended beyond food. They had already reshaped their world to suit their needs. What would happen when they turned that same determination toward the rest of us? The more time I spent among the humans, the more I realized their audacity extended far beyond their choice of meals. It wasn't just about eating apex predators. It was about their entire approach to existence. The humans weren't content to coexist with nature. They sought to dominate and redefine it. And as I watched their interactions with the galactic community, it became clear that they intended to do the same with the universe itself. The incident that crystallized this understanding occurred during a joint exploration mission. Humans had offered to assist the Gellar Consortium in surveying a newly discovered planet, rich with biodiversity and untouched by sentient influence. The planet, designated Callan 4, was a sprawling expanse of lush forests, vast oceans, and towering mountain ranges. It was teeming with life, much of it predatory. For most species, such a planet would be approached with caution. The predators here were massive and varied, ranging from serpentine creatures with scales harder than steel to avian beasts whose wings blotted out the sky. Even the herbivores were formidable, equipped with natural defenses to fend off attacks from the planet's many dangers. To the humans, however, it was an opportunity. The expedition began with a simple objective: to catalog the planet's flora and fauna. While the rest of us focused on observing the ecosystem from a safe distance, the humans wasted no time taking a more hands-on approach. They deployed drones to track the movements of the predators, using the data to identify their strengths and weaknesses. They set up camps near predator-dense areas, not as a precaution, but as a challenge. "We need to understand them up close," one human explained to me as we watched a team of her colleagues setting traps for a creature they called the Callan Leviathan. It was a massive, multi-limbed predator with a maw large enough to swallow a human whole. "If we're going to coexist or compete, we need to know what we're dealing with." I couldn't help but admire their bravery, even as I questioned their sanity. The Callan Leviathan was unlike anything I'd ever seen. A being so far removed from the creatures of Earth that I doubted even the humans could handle it. Yet, they approached the task with confidence, relying on their technology, teamwork, and sheer determination. It didn't take long for them to succeed. Within days, they had captured a live specimen. Watching them work was both mesmerizing and unnerving. They studied the creature with a thoroughness that bordered on obsession, analyzing its anatomy, behavior, and weaknesses. By the end of the expedition, they had not only cataloged the planet's life forms, but also developed methods to contain and neutralize its most dangerous predators. The humans treated the entire experience as a triumph, celebrating their discoveries with the same enthusiasm they showed during their feasts. I realized then that their relationship with predators wasn't limited to Earth. It was a core aspect of their identity, a driving force that propelled them to conquer whatever challenges lay before them. Where other species saw danger, the humans saw potential. Where others retreated, they advanced. Callan 4 wasn't just a new planet to them, it was a proving ground. And as they packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, I overheard one of the humans discussing plans to return. "Imagine the farming opportunities here," she said, her eyes alight with excitement. "If we can domesticate even half of these creatures, the possibilities are endless." Her words sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't enough for them to study or survive. They wanted to reshape the planet itself, bending it to their will as they had done with Earth. Every time the tower crashed or fell, it cost them their lives. For the first time, I began to understand the full scope of their ambition. Humans weren't just explorers or conquerors. They were something far more unsettling, creators of their own ecosystems, architects of new worlds. And I couldn't help but wonder, if they were willing to transform a planet as dangerous as Callan 4, what would they do to the rest of the galaxy? As humanity's reputation spread across the galaxy, so did the stories of their exploits. To some, they were pioneers, bold and innovative, unafraid to challenge the natural order. To others, they were dangerous disruptors, a species that lacked the humility to respect the delicate balance of ecosystems. I found myself caught between these perspectives, unable to decide if they were the galaxy's greatest hope or its most significant threat. The turning point came when the humans invited a delegation of alien observers to visit one of their most ambitious projects, the Apex Reserve. Located on a terraformed moon orbiting a gas giant, the reserve was described as a sanctuary where humanity studied and preserved Earth's most formidable predators. I was among the chosen delegates, my curiosity outweighing my apprehension. The journey to the Apex Reserve was uneventful, but as we approached, the scale of the endeavor became apparent. The moon's surface was a patchwork of carefully designed biomes, each one tailored to replicate the natural habitats of the creatures housed within. Deserts, jungles, savannas, and icy tundras stretched as far as the eye could see, enclosed by towering energy fields that shimmered faintly in the atmosphere. Our human guides welcomed us with their characteristic warmth, eager to showcase their achievements. The tour began with a visit to the savanna biome, where Earth's apex predators roamed freely in an environment meticulously crafted to mimic their original home. Lions prowled the tall grass, their movements graceful and predatory. Packs of hyenas cackled in the distance, while elephants and rhinos moved with deliberate power. The humans spoke with pride about their efforts to recreate these ecosystems, describing how they had used genetic technology to resurrect species on the brink of extinction, or even long gone from Earth entirely. They explained how the Apex Reserve functioned not just as a sanctuary, but as a research facility, allowing them to study predator-prey dynamics and refine their techniques for coexisting with dangerous creatures. "It's not just about preservation," one of the human scientists explained. "It's about understanding. These predators were integral to Earth's ecosystems, and by studying them, we learn how to build better systems on other worlds." The tour continued through the jungle biome, where tigers and leopards stalked the underbrush, and then to the oceanic section, a massive enclosed sea where sharks, orcas, and other marine predators thrived. It was an impressive display of human ingenuity, but it also raised uncomfortable questions. One of the delegates, a reptilian Kahazari named Threlic, voiced what many of us were thinking. "You claim this is preservation," he said, his scaled brow furrowed in skepticism. "But isn't this just another form of control? These creatures aren't truly wild. They're your creations, living on your terms." The human guide didn't flinch. "We see it differently," she replied. "Yes, we've taken control, but only to ensure their survival. In the wild, they were at the mercy of changing climates, poaching, and overpopulation. Here, they have a chance to thrive. It's not perfect, but it's better than extinction." The relic hissed softly but said no more. I couldn't help but admire the humans' confidence, even as I grappled with the implications of their actions. They had turned preservation into domination, wielding their technology to shape life itself. As the tour concluded, we were treated to a meal, a customary gesture, the humans said, to foster goodwill. The food was, predictably, derived from the very predators we had just observed. Plates of shark steak, lion kebabs, and tiger masala were laid out before us, each dish prepared with impeccable skill. The juxtaposition was striking. On one hand, the humans claimed to revere these creatures, investing immense resources to save and study them. On the other hand, they consumed them with the same nonchalance they showed for less formidable prey. I tasted the food, my thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The flavors were exquisite, the dishes prepared with such care that they bordered on artistry. And yet, I couldn't escape the feeling that this feast was a microcosm of humanity itself. Bold, audacious, and utterly unapologetic. As the meal ended and we prepared to leave the Apex Reserve, I found myself staring out at the biomes one last time. The predators within were alive and thriving, but they were no longer the masters of their domains. They existed at the mercy of humanity, their lives dictated by the whims of a species that refused to accept any limits. I realized then that the humans weren't just a species. They were a force of nature. And like any force of nature, they were both awe-inspiring and profoundly dangerous. The question was no longer whether humanity could coexist with the galaxy, but whether the galaxy could coexist with humanity. The Apex Reserve lingered in my thoughts long after I left its carefully curated ecosystems and returned to the familiar corridors of the Galar Consortium. The humans had shown us their world not as it was, but as they imagined it could be, dominated, controlled, and reshaped to their will. It was both a marvel of ingenuity and a stark warning. Yet, as much as their actions unsettled me, I couldn't deny the underlying fascination they evoked. Back at the consortium, debates about humanity's place in the galaxy intensified. Their audacity divided the member species. Some saw them as a threat, a reckless force that would destabilize the fragile balance of interstellar ecosystems. Others believed they were a necessary innovation, a species unafraid to take risks that others wouldn't dare. Detective Lawrence Somerville. As I listened to the arguments, I couldn't help but reflect on my own observations. Humanity wasn't just about consumption or domination. They were driven by a need to transcend their limitations. Their defiance of the natural order wasn't born of malice, but of an unrelenting desire to thrive. Still, the question of how they would coexist with the rest of us loomed large. They had already begun exporting their philosophy to other worlds, introducing Earth predators into alien ecosystems under the guise of ecological experimentation. They weren't content with reshaping their own planet. They were starting to reshape ours. The moment that solidified humanity's trajectory came during an emergency session of the consortium. The topic was an incident on a frontier world, one inhabited by the Osvalin, a herbivorous species known for their intricate cultural practices and deeply rooted respect for nature. The humans had introduced an apex predator from Earth, a genetically modified version of local herbivores that threatened to overrun the planet's limited resources. At first, the plan had worked. The jaguars kept the herbivores in check, restoring balance to the ecosystem. But the Osvalin were horrified. To them, the jaguar wasn't just a predator. It was a violation, an alien invader that had no place in their sacred lands. Protests erupted, and tensions escalated. When the matter was brought to the consortium, the human ambassador addressed the assembly with a calm that belied the storm they had created. "We understand your concerns," she said, her voice steady. "But our intention was never to disrupt your traditions. The jaguars were introduced to restore balance, to prevent an ecological collapse that would have destroyed your world. We've done this on our own planet for centuries, and it works." Her words were met with a cacophony of responses, some supportive, others outraged. I watched as the debate spiraled into chaos. The room divided between those who admired humanity's practicality and those who condemned their hubris. In that moment, I realized that humanity's greatest strength and greatest danger lay in their refusal to see boundaries as permanent. To them, every rule was a guideline to be rewritten, every challenge an opportunity to innovate. Their actions on the Osvalin world were a microcosm of their approach to the galaxy, bold, unapologetic, and entirely focused on achieving their goals. As the session ended, I found myself walking alongside the human ambassador. Her expression was thoughtful, her gaze distant. "You've stirred quite the debate," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. She smiled faintly. "We always do, but that's the thing about humanity. We don't shy away from the hard conversations. Change is messy, but it's necessary." I couldn't argue with her logic, even as I grappled with its implications. Humanity's willingness to challenge the status quo had propelled them to incredible heights, but it also made them a wild card in the intricate web of interstellar relations. That night, as I sat alone in my quarters, I reflected on everything I had seen and heard. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were a force of transformation, reshaping the galaxy in their image. They brought with them innovation, adaptability, and resilience, but also disruption, defiance, and an unyielding drive to conquer the unknown. For better or worse, humanity was here to stay. And as I stared out at the stars, I couldn't help but wonder what the galaxy would look like in 1,000 years, once humanity's influence had fully taken root. Would we see a future of unity and progress, or one of conflict and upheaval? One thing was certain: the humans would not be content to remain passive observers of the galaxy. They would push boundaries, challenge conventions, and force every species they encountered to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. In the end, humanity wasn't defined by their consumption of apex predators or their mastery of ecosystems. They were defined by their relentless pursuit of growth, their refusal to accept limits, and their unshakable belief that they could overcome any obstacle. And perhaps, in their audacity, they would teach us all to dream a little bigger, even as they forced us to reckon with the cost of their ambition.